Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about something that is both amusing and annoying at the same time, and it's people who try to create arguments against speed work who claim that it doesn't work. And the problem with that is if you're going to claim something doesn't work and then you're going to state the reasons it doesn't work, you better actually know that it doesn't work first. Because speed work clearly makes athletes and lifters stronger, faster, and bigger. Okay, it's been tested and tested and tested in the trenches for a long time, and we know that it does those things. So if you come out and say, hey, this doesn't work, and here's why, you're going to look like a complete jackass to anybody who's been around the thing that you're discussing, because everyone who's been around it and been around athletes and lifters who use this method know that they get results from it. So you're starting with a false premise and then explaining your false premise with a set of logic. Well, you're just a complete jackass at that point. As people say, wow, well, there's coaches and good people you respect who say that. Yeah, but they're being complete jackasses. Just like when I say something that's really stupid, which I have done and admitted to at certain times, I'm making an ass out of myself. Right? And if I can admit that I say things that make an ass out of myself when I see someone else do it, it's fair to say, hey, you're making an ass out of yourself. And they are, because it does work. Now, the sort of standard arguments that you see are powerlifting isn't a speed strength sport. And there's a certain merit to that point. There is merit to that point. It's not technically a speed strength sport. Now, Olympic lifting is. Bar speed matters a lot there. But to say that there's no speed component to power lifts, the big three, and it isn't necessarily true. Now, we know that they're largely brute strength lifts. I mean, if we want to make an argument, if we want to make a real argument about the big three, we should also say they're not technique lifts. Like, if we really want to cut to the fine details, technically technique work doesn't do that much for the big three either, by the way. High specificity guys. The reason your squat, bench, and deadlift go up on the programs where you're doing tons and tons and tons of them with submaximal work is because you hypertrophied the muscles. Okay, because that technique doesn't carry over that well. And they're not that technical of movements. If you just get big enough and strong enough, you're going to be good at the big three, even if your technique isn't phenomenal. But I digress. We don't see that sort of argument by the same people being made, and it should be. I mean, if we want to cut hairs, we would really say the only thing that really matters on the big three is brute strength. Because you can brute strength your way to an elite total. Okay, you can brute strength your way to an elite total without even practicing those lifts. But, over to the point. Speed does matter to some extent because you can only strain for so long. And if you haven't successfully completed the lift by the number of seconds that you can strain maximally, you're going to fail the lift 99% of the time. But it's only going to be a few seconds. Right? People say, well, 6 seconds. I would venture to say that most lifters can't strain against a max for 6 full seconds or 8 full seconds. Some can. The average is going to be up to about 4. So you have a limited amount of time to lock that weight. So to say that speed doesn't matter at all, that's not true. It does matter. It's just less important than just your sheer brute strength. But let's come over to the rest of it. Speed work does make you more explosive. All right, that does make you more athletic, and let's raise that point. How many people out there complain that a lot of powerlifters aren't athletic? Well, a lot of powerlifters don't do conditioning or speed work either, right? So of course they're not athletic. And that's something that we have to get away from in some strength sports like that. In fact, that's one of the biggest criticisms you can safely and fairly level against powerlifting. You can't say powerlifters in general, but you could say A lot of power lifters, a pretty big section of power lifters, are really fat, and I don't mean bodybuilder fat, right? I don't mean that they're where I'm at. I mean they're fat with big bellies, risking heart disease and diabetes and everything else, right? That's an argument. We could also argue non-athletic. They're only good at the big three. But that can be resolved with better training. A lot of this training that we talk about. How about doing the speed work? Well, that'll increase athleticism. Doing conditioning, that'll increase athleticism. Doing higher volumes of training, not just doing 3s and 5s. That'll help. Okay, all these things help. That's one point to be made, but let's get over into the rest. Here's the other thing that we run into. Even if the speed component is removed, and I don't think that it's fair to do that, because you cannot, for most people at least, if you cannot get the weight moving fast enough, you're going to miss a big lift. There is a speed component. There's a speed component. Even if you slow down at your sticking point grinding near the last lockout, if you don't get there pretty quick, you're going to miss that lift. There's a speed component. That aside, what else does speed work do? Speed work hypertrophies you. Everyone, when they first get into speed work and start doing it right, notice a lot of the muscles involved in these lifts start hypertrophying. And it makes sense. It's got a lot of work density. We know that normally, under normal conditions, that when bar speed is normal, only the last 5 reps within failure generally cause a hypertrophic response. But we know that compensatory acceleration can change that. All right? Well, speed work is all compensatory acceleration. And even though we say, oh, it's lightweight, it's not that light. A lot of times people say, well, exploding a weight that's super light. Well, I mean, realistically, what am I doing with these? 50% of my max plus 25% change, and then we increase that through a wave? That's still at the top of the lift, 75%. And we're moving it extremely fast. We're still hitting upper threshold fibers. We're hitting upper threshold fibers on that. You're getting a training response. You're getting hypertrophy from it. So yes, we are improving speed, strength. We are improving rate of force production. But we're also hypertrophying a lot of the important muscles. Okay, we're getting a hypertrophic response. You'll grow from speed work. All right, what else does it do? We practice setting up. And this part is more specific to something like powerlifting. If you're doing variations of the big 3 for your speed work, how many first reps are you getting? Like in this stuff here, this footage from this wave was 10 sets of each of these lifts in one workout. How much practice with first reps are you getting if you get under and do 10 sets of speed bench? Not even counting your warm-ups, you're practicing 10 first reps where you explode maximally. You're practicing your setup, your arch, your unrack 10 times. Okay? Same thing with your speed squat. You're practicing getting under the bar, unracking, first rep 10 times. Speed pulls. You do 10 singles on a speed pull. You're doing 10 practices of a maximum force deadlift. Okay, first reps carry over the most as far as technique goes. You're getting practice. And the same people who would argue, well, that's not the same, are the same people who will do 70 or 75% max for technique work and think that they're getting carryover with normal work sets. Well, make up your mind. Which is it? At least with this, you're getting more practice because you're setting up more often because you're doing 9, 10, 12 first reps. You're having to set up that many times. How much of your technique on these big lifts is about the setup? Because outside of that, it's just learning how to strain maximally with decent form. Okay, you're practicing first reps. You're practicing setting up. We're getting more explosive. We're getting faster. And we're inducing hypertrophy. And it's really easy to recover from. Let's come back over and let's mention that other thing when we talk about training. How about stimulus to fatigue ratio? Speed work is really good on stimulus to fatigue ratios. Which means we can do a lot of it. And it won't interfere very much with the rest of our training because it's easy to recover from. Okay? It brings a lot to the table that no one wants to admit, and they create these arguments. It doesn't work because of this with the speed. Well, that's pretty much irrelevant in light of the fact that we know that it works. We see it work. Maybe it just doesn't work for exactly the reasons that you're arguing against. Maybe it doesn't work for the exact reasons everyone thinks it works in its entirety. But it clearly works. Guys get amazing results doing it. So when you argue that it doesn't work, you sound like a moron. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.